see if it's gonna let us. All right, let's try this again, y'all. Let's see if we get some people on here real quick. You know, if not, it'll hit the replay. No big deal. People figure it out. Okay. Everybody breathe. Now, resume your story. See where we were.
All right, so
the man.
I'm from Lufkin, man, and I grew up here. And like, I ain't gonna lie, man, Lufkin is crazy, man. It's wild. Like, but you know, I had my little runs ins and everything, and I was just like, you know, the rest of some of the guys, man. I fell victim to the streets, as we call it, and you know, I led myself kind of down the wrong paths, man, and a lot of it led me in behind bars, and you know, a lot of things I done, I'm not so proud of, you know, trying to, you know, be a drug dealer and everything, and thinking that, you know, it was gonna get me somewhere. I thought it was cool, you know, being with a little crew and everything. I thought it was cool. I thought it was the thing, you know, and you know, now that I've gotten older and I realize, and now that I've actually
Again.
been locked up and I've been to the penitentiary and I know what it's like and I know how it feels to be locked up, it's not what it really seemed out to be. Like, it's not as cool as I thought it was. Like, nobody told me that there was going to be hot days and long nights, you know, knowing that, you know, your family out there and they need you, you know, and like, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, that was the most important
You
thing for
imagine
me.
the fantasy.
Yeah, you know, and like, I I didn't realize how much I took away from them, you know, like with me not being there, just being able to be there for them, like, and like my parents, like they up there, like they old school, so like right around these times, like I'm like I should be there, you know, like it's gonna be a point in time where I gotta be there for them, just like they was there for me, and you know the whole time I was locked up,
Yeah.
like my mom was there, like she was the one that I could call and get on the phone with and take my mind out of that prison, you know, and like being locked up down there like that it wasn't fun at all. Like it got to the point to where like, you know, you didn't even want to think about the days. It went from you doing days to weeks to months, and then it turned into years. Cause you don't know when you getting out. Like you don't ever know if you're gonna make parole or not. Like yeah, and then some days you don't know if you're gonna wake up and catch a new charge and spend the rest of your life down there. And you know, like I want to be able to reach to the youth and let them know, like,
Devil's
man,
playground.
it's yeah, and like I want to be able to touch the youth to the point to where like they'll be able to understand that there's a better life versus the life of being in the streets and what it the type of losses you can take from it. Like I seen so many guys down there that had been gone for so long, they lose their mama down there. They lose brothers, they lose all type of family members, and you know, and it's tough, and like it puts so much trauma on you to where it'll cause you to be belligerent, you know, and you don't think, you know, a lot of times like you'll just do stuff and you'll do it out of just acting out, you know, because you in so much pain because you're not able to
Out
be
of
there. Like,
pain.
yeah, like the whole time I was down there, I lost my aunt, you know, and it hurt me so bad because like she was one of the closest ones in my family, like my immediate family, like who I was raised up with, like, and it hurt me bad, man. Like I lost her to cancer, and she had cancer. I forget what kind of cancer it was, but it was like cancer that started in her lungs, and it went from her lungs to where it put a tumor in her brain, and like it killed her. It killed her like it killed her fast. And then not only that, my brother he been fighting cancer since then, you know, and like it was tough for me, man. So like, I was that when I first hit the unit, man. I went through Bird, and I'll never forget when I first got there. Cause what they gonna do, the first thing, and then that's another thing too, like which I was talking about earlier. What we was talking about earlier about the gang stuff. Like I put all this gang related tattoos on my body, and one of the first things they gonna do as soon as you hit the unit is they're gonna put you in gang profile. That's the first thing they do. They look at your tattoos and they take pictures of them.
Hold that thought
They
because
take
we're actually going to get to that here in just a little bit. We're going to get to that in just a little bit because Tabitha's got a story on that. And that's why I'm going to cut you right here because I think Tabitha's going to play in onto this too because it's going to fit exactly what you're saying right now. All right.
Okay.
Tabitha,
Okay.
go ahead. Tell us why you're here real quick.
Hello, I'm Tabitha. I was born and raised in Vidor, Texas, and I have 2 sons in prison and a husband. And so they were recently pulled out of their cells over in where were they? Pam Lynchner, and the gang intelligence pulled them out, and they started asking them. So I had my husband. I'm gonna go there first. So I met my husband. I've known him for 30 years, and we started writing while he was in prison. And so my kids they've never met him. Now he was in a gang, and he has trying to get out of that and went through the grad program and all that, but they pulled them out of their cells and they started the first thing that they asked both of them was how they knew my husband. And they both are telling, them people that, like we don't know him. We don't know him. And so they were like guilty by association before anything, and then they started asking them about their. So we went and Friday the 13th and got tattoos, and both the boys got a 13 and I got a diamond behind my ear. Little did we know that those are associated with, that gang that
certain gangs.
Yeah, and then they're asking them, and then where we're from. And they literally, my son, I was just on the phone with him, and he said they literally laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're from Vidor, so you're definitely a gang member," And anybody in my hometown knows that my boys are, this is the thing that got them, and this is going to be part of their testimony that they glamorized it. They were on Facebook and pictures, and they're throwing up little signs, but that's what kids do, trying to be cool, So they went to their Facebook and they seen them pictures, and they were like, "Oh, well, here you are, doing this." So they automatic, confirmed them, and I tried to fight it, and I sent emails, and that's how I met you. And there was just nothing you could do, and now they're stuck in there, and it's really hard and sad. And I told them, like, you're gonna put my kids in 2 different positions. You're gonna make them be something, force them to be something that they're not, or you're gonna get them hurt for posing as something that they're not. Right. So and then they try to tell them to sign up for the grad program. And so my son, he called me, and he's literally crying, and he's like, "Mom, they want me to write this 2-page essay to the grad program." He said, "And I've never been initiated. I don't have a gang name. I don't, what am I supposed to do? I'm not going to lie to these people." So he wrote his heart on, that he's not part of this. And the lady said, "They're not going to accept this. You're going to have to write something better." And he said, "You know what? I'm not going to denounce something that I'm no part of, and I'm not going to do it." Now, my other son, he said, "I'm going to tell them what they want to hear so I can get out of here." So it's been real tough on us.
Yeah, nobody likes to be stereotyped. It happens to all categories of people, and nobody likes it, man. You can't never just lump an entire segment of a population or a group of people or a culture or nothing like that. Man, people are individuals. And while it makes it more difficult for a system as large as something like TDCJ to deal with individuals, it just makes their job easier to group them together. And okay, there's 100 of them. There's another 100. And it makes stuff
That
move
part.
faster for them. But at the
That
same
part.
time, man, all the individual lives that are being affected by these decisions.
Now, Christina, how are the gangs handled in Florida as far as like upon entry to the prisons? And is there a process to get out of gangs there? Like, how do they handle that there?
So I do have a loved one that's currently incarcerated. And he has shared with me kind of what it's like there. They do group them together. Yes, so they kind of increase the problem. They've also been released into like the rec yard, like as far as like different gang groups, like they know what's going to happen and they let them all go into the rec yard knowing exactly what's going to happen. So then they're going to get ERs or get in even more trouble. So it's really sad because the system's like it's set up for failure. It's set up so that they don't get out. So a lot of people think, our system is to help them so that if they made mistakes, they'll come out better. But that's not, that's not what our system does, and it's very sad. And it's definitely.
Do they segregate any of the particular groups?
Sometimes, not always, but it depends on. We have so many prisons in Florida, so it does depend on the facility itself. There are some where they do segregate, and then there's other times where they don't. So it just depends on the facility, what type of prison, because we have also a lot of prisons that are privately owned as well. So that's a whole nother problem.
Don't everybody.
Yeah.
Don't everybody.
Wow. So I mean, Tabitha, how did you? We come from the same similar background, area, place. How did you break free from everything and getting away from the biter stigma?
Well, I'll just tell you a little bit of my testimony. I've been in and out of jail probably 50 times with just misdemeanors and just acting a fool and drinking and partying and drugs. And I've always had a relationship with Jesus. And I tell people that during my drug addiction, I feel like that it was harder for me because I was being pulled and pushed in two different directions, between good and evil, and I knew better. So I literally, in my addiction, I had, just prayed and prayed and prayed, and because I wanted God to drag me out, but he's a gentleman and he won't do that. But he set me down in prison, and that's when I surrendered, and and then once you get sober for a little while, for a minute, all them feelings that you've been numbing for so long come flooding back, and I just started just praying and asking God to deliver me, and that I knew my kids were also following in that direction, because where you go your children will surely follow. And the boys, they have evading arrest and evading on foot, and just things like that, but they were following in my direction. So I had to stop and make a stand to where they want to look at me as, and want to do better. If she can do it, we can do it, So, and
Absolutely.
I put all the glory to God because without him, I would fall, So that's where I draw my strength, and that's how I did it. He had to sit me down in that jailhouse and make me think for a little while.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you guys some questions now that we'll get to like the panel per se. So, Kafi, do you believe that generational curses is what leads the most to incarceration, or do you think there's other factors involved as well?
Man, I honestly can say, man, I really just think that it really just depend on the person, really, if I'm just being honest. Like, I mean, you got a mind of your own. I mean, you know right from wrong. I mean, you got a choice. I mean, and I know like a lot of people that I grew up with didn't really have like that father figure or like that mom to tell you right from wrong and try to lead you on a straight path, and like and then you had some that did and just some of us just took other routes. I mean, but a lot of it still can be, that reason, like what you just said. It can be that reason, but then at the same time, like you had some people that still had options. Like you had it, like for instance, I had a cousin. He was good at basketball. I mean, he even had a scholarship. He had a scholarship to start at LSU, and because he got addicted to alcohol so bad and drugs, he threw it all away. And then, without his father being there, and then with my auntie passing away, his mom passing away and everything, like he lost his mind. Like he went crazy, like completely. Like he lost his mind to where like he like went on, like he even went to a psych ward, and they let him out, and he just was never the same. Like they put him on all that medication, and it messed him up so bad to where like he didn't even know who he was anymore. Like he didn't even know us. Like he didn't even know his own family. Like, but I think a lot of it got to do like. Say that again.
Freezing. So we're freezing over here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's glitching. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No,
so not
I
just
mean,
generation curses, but other factors that apply to individuals.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you got some people that was good, growing up and was going to school, probably had A's and B's and everything, and probably had a chance to make something out of themselves, and then they just took a different route. So like, if you ask me, no, I don't think it could be just that. I think there's various other reasons as to why people get led into incarceration. I mean, it just depends on the person, man, really.
Okay, let us get a different perspective real quick, perhaps. Christina, what do you think about it? Generational curses, do they play a role?
I think it depends. From my experience, I would say it could be a mix. So it could be generational, but sometimes it could be other things. For example, trauma, childhood abuse. There's all kinds of things. Some people that are veterans. There are a number of factors. I think one thing that the legal system fails to do is they look at the situation and the situation only. They don't go back to the trail to see, well, what happened 5 years ago that could have led here. So that's the reason that, we should have a diversion program or something. Like we don't just throw people in jail, because then what happens is it turns into a generational thing, because when you put someone in prison, it affects every family member that's connected to that person. And then you can see sometimes how other family members end up there because they don't have their dad, they don't have their mom or brother or sister, and so on. So, really it's every situation, I think, is it depends. It's a, case by case basis.
Right.
I got one thing I want to say. I agree with her. She said what I couldn't say better. I will just keep it all the way 100. Because like what she said was what I was trying to get out. But like she right though, like because like I come from a background of family members that's been to prison. Like Like RIP, my auntie that passed away from cancer. I mean, she was one that went to the penitentiary. I had an uncle that I watched go in and out the prison system like since I was a child, you know. So I definitely agree with her on that. Like it does come with a lot of trauma, and it does come from a lot of family background, which what I was trying. That's what I was getting to though. Like, you know, it could
A
be
lot of
generational. It does got a lot to do with a lot of generational curses, but also I still feel like that there's some that come from good families that had a way. They had the pavement to, you know, they had a solid foundation, and they still led down on a path of drugs or just whatever caused them to get incarcerated. Like mine was drugs and like for instance, me growing up, I watched my brother sell dope from the time I was in kindergarten all the way up to middle school, and I felt like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sell drugs. I wanted to be the dealer on the corner selling crack. Well, I can't say that, but you know, I wanted to be the one that was doing that. You know,
generation. That's the
yeah,
next
yeah,
generation in the
So that's
footsteps.
basically how a generational curse kind of started there, you know?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what we
yeah,
need.
yeah. So
Tabitha, how about
I
you guys?
definitely, I
Let's
definitely
get one
agree.
more perspective here, brother.
Yeah.
You asking
Go ahead,
me?
Tabitha.
Yep.
I believe that you know, I agree with them that you know, my mother was golden. You know what I mean? She didn't do drugs, and she was a great mother and my rock. But I believe it has a lot to do with you know, your people, places, and things, and then your relationships that you end up getting in, and you know what I mean too. You know, with you know, who you're hanging around with at a young age too. You know, but I don't believe that it always has you know, follows through the bloodline. You know, but because you know, with my mom, she in my family, they, you know, it wasn't my dad's side was, but not so much my mom. So
Right.
Yes.
I mean, me personally,
I
I was
agree.
raised by grandparents, and they were great. You know, my mother was a paranoid, schizophrenic, bipolar with some drug and alcohol issues. My father was an alcoholic, and his parents were alcoholics, but they were never around anyway. But by the age of probably 13, 14, I started dabbling in the drug world. And then by the time I was 24, I was completely hooked on opiates. And, you know, my mother died from a K2 overdose, like most people probably already know. So that just sent me and both of my children into a complete spiral. By the time my son was 11, he was then hooked on K2 and any other drug he could get his hands on and in the gang life. So I could say that I think my children, I may have started the like hardcore part of the generational curse because I didn't have really direct contact with my biological parents, you know, too much, you know, at a younger age because my grandparents were wonderful, but definitely got the traits from, you know, you could say the genetic traits from them. But I can tell you, for me, it was 1,000,000% trauma based. So, you know, I get both sides of it for sure.
As for myself, well, my parents divorced when I was a baby in arms, but my mama was a wild one. You know, she ran away from home at like 14 years old, hitchhiked from Florida all the way to Texas, and you know, she just wild out her whole life. You know, she had me when she was about 17 years old, and mama had a drug addiction. You know, my dad raised me. You know, my mama been to the penitentiary, you know, in Florida, and my dad raised me. And my dad never been to prison, but he was a biker type, you know what I'm saying? And he had a drug and alcohol problem, you know, alcohol and pills. And it ended up, he died of heart failure at 47 years old, totally unexpected. 47. I just turned 43 last week, you know, it's crazy. You know, my mama died when I was 18 years old. My daddy died when I was 21 years old. You know, so I was raised around this stuff, man. They didn't do it deliberately in front of me or nothing, but you know, a kid's going to be aware of what's going on to one degree or another. And then I had two godfathers. They both been to prison before, you know, so subconsciously you absorb this stuff that's all around you. And even if it's not in your immediate family, you know, it may be a sibling. And if it's not even in your family at all, it could be the friends that you have that you go to school with, their older brothers, their family members. You're seeing this stuff and hearing about this stuff, these lifestyles and these penitentiary trips. And the problem is a lot of this stuff is glorified. You know, they make it sound like it's cool. It's live, right? It's just, you know, all this jazz. And man, young people buy into that and they want to be cool too. They want to be popular. They want to have money and clothes and jewelry or whatever it is that floats their boat, right? That they think is fancy and that will make them more accepted by others.
Oh, y'all froze up for a second.
And so, man, these are all factors that play into. We're going to be one of the ones that get away with it, you know. And for most of us, it just don't work out that way. You know, most of us end up biting the bullet or going to prison ourselves. And then we come out of prison and we got to deal with this old convict stigmata that hangs around our neck. Now, I got denied at 6 different apartment complexes just trying to find a place to live. And this is for a crime that happened 25 years ago. I was a 17-year-old kid. They don't care.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that brings us to like the next point. If the problem is generational, what are some of the ways that we could perhaps break this vicious cycle that keeps on mowing down our youth generation after generation? You know, or a more pointed question, and I'll start with you, Kafid. How did you break your cycle, bro? How did you finally get out?
Well, unfortunately, right now, I have my niece that lives with me, and her dad, my brother, right now, he's kind of going through a lot of stuff right now, man, and he hooked on drugs right now, real bad, and like, I'm trying to let that be. I want to be a different, you know, male figure in her life to show her something totally different than what she's seeing out of her dad right now. And right now, unfortunately, my brother, he's on his way going back to the penitentiary as we speak. Like, he on his way. And, you know, I feel like me, you know, just being in her life and like teaching her why she's still young right now, because she need it and she really need a male figure in her life, which, I mean, she got her grandparents and everything, but like, I still like they're not able to be able to. I don't know. It's kind of you know, because like she kind of really need to like have somebody that's gonna like be right there with her, like step by step. And a lot of times my grandparents, they got so much other stuff going on. I'm always the one that's with her 24/7. So like, I'm letting that be I'm letting her see me go to work every day, you know, doing something different. Like, you know, like just spending time and just like doing fun things, like doing stuff that I used to do when I was a kid, when I was growing up, you know, and then starting there and showing her, you know, and then just starting there and showing her like, okay, I'm not all the way institutionalized. Like, I still got some of my brain, you know, that's kicking. So I don't let her see that side of me though. Like, I try to keep it, you know, at a cleaner state with her. Yeah, man. Cause like, I ain't gonna lie, man. Sometimes, man, I get to that point to where like, bro, I think institutionalized sometimes. Like I'll come in the room and I'll be in the room for hours, bro, and I'll be like, damn, man, I need to get out of here, man, because like I'm feeling like I'm in the cell again. I'm like, man, I'm in here chilling, like I'm waiting on door roll to roll or something, man, and I'm waiting on child to call, like, and I'm like, man, I'm like, man, nah, I can't do this. So then that's where I go to like, hey, man, you trying to go walk to the store with me? You trying to go to the park? You want to go play? You know, I try to find like kid things to do with her so she could be a kid, like, cause like she's getting to the point to where like she's trying to be a grown up, and like
The problem with
she's only 6
nowadays is kids can't be kids anymore.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting to. Like she's so used to seeing like being around grown ups and being around like grown ups doing grown up things, and I'm just like, nah, you need to be a kid. You know, you need to be a kid, man. Like, don't try to grow up too fast, man. Just stay a kid, cause like that was my problem. Like, I wish I would have stayed. Yeah, I wish I would have stayed a kid, man. I wish I could go back sometimes. Like, I wish I could just hit that restart button, and then I want to at least go back to shit. I wish I could just be a newborn again on the cool.
Right,
like just start all the way over, man, all the way over. But I mean, yeah, like that's something that I'm still working on, though. Like I'm still working on trying to be a better person. Like I'm trying to be a better me. Like I'm still trying to find myself, like in ways to where I can be a better example for the youth. You know, like yeah, I done been to prison, but I changed though. Like you can change, like and yeah,
you start
and you can stop it.
Really be. Whenever you
because like
not just living for yourself,
inspire
other people and uplift other people.
Yeah, because like at some point, man, you got to stop living for yourself and you got to start living for other people that really need that type of assistance, like where it's needed, you know? Because like, man, I had a young dude the other day, man. Yeah, I had a young dude the other day. I was going to the store, man, and I'll never forget this. This been like a month ago. I was going to the store, man, and I had just got off from work. I go in the store, cause I normally go in there and I get my little Debbie snacks and stuff, cause I'm like, I'm a fat boy, so I like, you know, and then I've been locked up, so I'm like, man, I miss, you know, my little, yeah, you know, the real honey buns, not the artificial penitentiary honey buns, the real honey buns, the ones you put in the microwave, and yeah, you know, and
like
you
still putting peanut butter on them boys.
Man, what? Hell, do I? Hey, that's the best protein you gonna get. But nah, like I'll never forget, man. Like I was going inside of the store and I had this young dude. He stopped me like, hey, bro. He's like, man, you got $1? I'm like, yeah, I got $1. I'm like, yeah, hold on, let me go in the store real quick. I got you. I come back out, I give him a $5. I'm like, man, here. Do what you gonna do with it. I don't care what you do with it, but make wise decisions with it. Don't go spending on no drugs and nothing like that. And then, you know, so a couple weeks later, I see him again, and he at my brother's house. So I walk in because I'm going in to go check on him and everything, because you know my brother's still dealing with cancer. So every now and then I try to go check up on him and see how he doing. So I go in, this same dude, he over there, he chilling with my brother. I'm like, all right. I'm like, what's up, man? You all right, man? How you been? Like, man, I've been all right, man. And then I sat down for a minute, and then he asked me, he's like, hey, bro, man, you got a dummy lit? I said, a dummy lit? I'm like, man, what you talking about, man? He like, man, you got somebody you can, you know, woo, woo, woo. And I'm like, man, nah, bro, I don't intervene in that kind of stuff no more, man. I'm like, man, you just setting yourself up for failure. Then he shows me a thing, a little fire, and he showed it to me, and I'm like, man, I don't want to touch that, bro. Like, I'm a whole felon. I can't even be around that. Like, I don't want to touch it because I don't know what you're gonna do with it.
It might be time for me to go.
Yeah, you know, and that's where it led to. But then I had to drop some wisdom on him, and I said, you know what? I said the path that you walking down right now, because he was a lot younger. Dude was like 19 or 20. He was like right there in the beginning of being an adult. And I'm just like, man, the path you walking down right now, bro. I said, and I'm like, bro, you gonna end up in prison. You either gonna end up dead or you gonna end up in prison, bro. And I'm like, you gotta think smarter, bro, because what you doing right now is not gonna turn out how you think it is. And I'm like, you trying to get me to set you up with somebody so you can try to rob them. I'm like, now what if they end up robbing you, or better yet, what if they end up unaliving you? Because and then it wasn't the fact that he had the gun. The gun was fake.
What?
The gun was fake. But you know what's so crazy? The gun looked so real. I was amazed. I was like, man, this gun looks so real, bro. Like, but then I'm looking at it, I'm like, bro, you gonna get yourself hurt, man.
That's the crazy.
Yeah, and I'm just like, man, I'm like,
nowadays they're absolutely crazy.
And then, you know, I'm just thinking to myself, like, wow, bro, like this kid seriously gonna throw his life away and behind nothing. You know what I told him? I said, man, go get a job. Yeah.
He don't even know what's coming his way.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, I'm thinking to myself, like, you finna experience everything that I experienced coming up, man. Like being in a gang, like I wish I wouldn't even thought about that, man. Look, when I want to say I was about 23, 24 at the time. I know I was still young at the time, but man, I ended up getting shot through both my legs, right? I ended up getting shot. And was any of the homies there for me when I was laid up in the hospital and I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, I couldn't do nothing for myself. I couldn't even get up to even take myself to the bathroom or even, you know, give myself a proper bath. You know what I'm saying? Like, what none of y'all there. Even when I was in prison, I ain't getting out one letter from y'all. I ain't had nobody come check up on my mama, nothing. So like now when I look at it now, I'm like, man, like it was totally pointless, man. It was worthless.
So real about that.
Yeah, man, and like
Christina,
it's crazy these days.
How with the gangs over there in Florida?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Yeah. So what's the juvenile gang situation like in Florida, like realistically, and how are you guys
trying to address
combating it really?
So unfortunately in Florida, they kind of throw away the key. So if we have juvenile gangs, instead of looking at it like they're young, they are developing, they're not, they might be in bad situations. They don't do any type of, rehabilitation or anything to kind of get them on the right track. So they throw them into juvenile prison. Sometimes they'll even put them in an adult prison, depending on the situation, which is very, very sad and unfortunate. And a lot of these kids come from really bad areas where they don't have money for a defense attorney. So they are heavily relied on just the state appointed attorney. And we know how that works. They're not, you're just a number. They don't see you as a person. So what ends up happening is it creates a bigger problem, because then when they get out, because of where they just came from, they either go back down the same path, or they don't have a home to go to, or even a job, because in Florida, your criminal information is public record. So they can't get a job, and their only option is to go back down the path that got them there in the first place. So, it's been shown with data and research that Florida is really driven on, getting people incarcerated makes the state money, unfortunately. So they will throw away the key very quickly. Yes, they'll throw it very easy with juvenile gangs. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Texas' best friend.
Texas and Florida just consider each other quite a bit.
Yeah, no.
So are there any kind of like outreach programs that, as far as like, okay, say if a juvenile gets in trouble, will they get probation first normally, or they just straight go in?
It depends. It depends a lot on it's very situation to situation. Like they don't look at it as like, okay, you both have the same charge, so we're going to give you this. This person may get probation, but this person may get something more severe. And a lot of times it has to do with money. And when I say that, I mean like, can one afford a criminal defense attorney, or does one only have the option for the state appointed attorney? But I know like at Freedom Force Florida, we're working on the Mercy for Kids Act. So, we have initiatives that we're trying to push forward because we do have a lot of individuals that committed a crime before the age of 18, and they've been sitting in prison for 45 years, not getting out because we don't have parole. So, and not all of them are violent offenses. Some of them are drug offenses where they're sitting there 45 years, and it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense.
So explain this "you don't have parole" thing to me.
So we have parole, meaning it's there, but nobody ever gets approved. So the way our system is currently is you'll go to the parole hearing and they'll say, okay, these are the things that you need to show. You show those things. The next time they're like, oh, now we need these things. So every time you go, it's like a slap in the face that it gets to a point where people no longer go because they do all this work and it's not a guaranteed, thing at all. And parole was eliminated.
Most people are discharging their entire sentence out there.
Yes, they actually eliminated parole in 1995, but they still, quote, say we have parole, but we really don't. So I know there's been some bills that's been trying to pass, but the bills that are trying to be passed are not very productive. So we're kind of glad they didn't get passed because they're set up. So if you make one little tiny mistake, you go right back to prison. Yeah. So, we really do need to revamp. Yeah, just like Texas, we need to revamp the entire system because, and what the state needs to realize is when they hurt these individuals, it's not just them they're hurting. They're hurting the communities, the economy, just all the families.
It has a large ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly. They don't see it at all, and we're trying to change it, and we're on a really good path forward, but we just have to keep pushing and keep the pressure on but absolutely. I won't give up.
You guys have a lot of like what I call internal team members, correct, to help collaborate with your work?
We do.
Is the state pretty good at facilitating that interaction between y'all?
No, we have to do it ourselves. So I'm the one that has to network. So like I'll go to prisons and stand outside where there's loved ones and family members, and I'll start having conversations that way. I'm sure they don't appreciate that.
They're like to do that. Wow.
That is on the ground activism. Yes.
For sure. I can't do that here. They'd probably take me to jail.
You're a soldier, girl. Yeah.
Try.
Yeah, I try.
Her screen's black.
Man, you know what got me? You know what got me by in prison? Real Vita.
What?
That podcast they put on the tablets. The Real Vita podcast.
Real Vita. Yeah. Yeah. Salute to Real Vita, man. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Miss Eve. She was missed, man. She was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Amazing,
yeah.
Yep.
That was great.
So
ideas on how to
say, how can we as a nation stop kids from going to prison? Like, what can we do from the outside? What can we do from the inside? Would a program that would even involve, you have a Scared Straight program, but it's a joke. It really is.
That don't work. Yeah.
We need
how can people, and they're never going to let us bring children into a penitentiary. They're not going to let us bring in there. But I think that's almost needed in some situations.
No,
yeah, I totally agree with you on that because I think if they was able to see And I don't mean like sending them to no low or medium security. They need to go to a maximum security unit. That's what they need to see. Because I feel like if they see how they live in there and how they well, I ain't gonna say exactly how they live, but how they're forced to live, I think that they would reconsider a whole
Yeah, but so
lot.
what would you do? What would you bring to Viter to help, all of the family?
To break the cycle.
Yeah.
What can break the cycle of these kids following in these footsteps generation after generation? Do you have any thoughts or ideas on it?
Well, we have a friend of mine just started up a little well, it's called the Hope House in Vidor, Texas. But it's for women, and it's for whenever they're coming out of prison, and it's helping them get on their feet and get a job and get their license and stuff. So maybe if they had some more places like that, or there's a lot of people, them kids don't have nowhere to go, they're just running the streets.
Right.
And so maybe if there was some kind of little place that they could go and try to
Like
get
real
help.
after school programs like we had when we were younger.
Yes.
Right. And Rashawn, no, we're not talking about taking kids just and letting them free through a prison. I'm talking like build a program where they would be safe, with field ministers per se, and they'd only be able to see this one certain part. But hiding them from the truth just isn't. It's not helping.
We want to break the fantasy.
Yeah.
People have a fantasy in their mind about what gang life is like, about what this whole gangster life, thug life stuff is about.
Feel how hot it is in there alone.
The glamour. People, as weird as it sounds, people even think that going to the penitentiary is going to be a cool experience, that they're going to go have fun.
Yeah.
I've heard it myself.
Let me reiterate. Let me reiterate what I said earlier. I don't mean like let them go inside of a prison and see everything, but I do feel like they should see what goes on inside of a prison. That way that they could like maybe get more insight on what it's like living in that type of conditioning in those situations.
Right, I agree.
I feel like maybe if they seen.
Yeah. Tabitha, what would you have done differently with your three, actually? What would we be doing?
Well, I definitely wouldn't have showed them how to, doing what I was doing. You know what I mean? I was hustling, and we'll just call it that. And they just watched me. You know what I mean? And they seen what I was doing, and I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
I'm in the same boat. I understand. I felt like I enabled a whole lot of problems because I was so heavy in my own trauma and addiction that I wasn't able to step forward and be like, hey, enough, this is enough. I always pacified it with, well, I'm tired of arguing with them, or I'm tired of fighting with them, when no, I wasn't really fighting or arguing enough. And so I just kind of let it go. And so, but once you're seeing through clear glasses and not this rose-colored glass anymore, you realize that, no, I actually didn't do the best I could because I was too busy. I couldn't even contain myself, much less my own children.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was.
The boys, they are gonna, they say now, like we thought it was cool, gang, and that's why they were throwing these signs up, just to be cool, glamorizing it, and they're gonna have they're gonna use their testimony whenever they get out of there to be able to talk to the people over there in that town and tell them that ain't cool, man, and where they send you sure ain't cool, because they're they're in that little box, and it's a wake up call for them like none other, so
Absolutely.
and then the program, with my husband, and I wanted to touch on this, that,
Please.
he went to, he's been in 5 on the 9, never been in trouble, never been wrote up, went to substance abuse before he, got put in SEG. And he went through the grad program, graduated April 25th. And April 28th, he was denied parole for gang affiliation. So,
Even though he just finished the grad program, y'all.
Yeah. So
Just finished.
He's just, and he's just like, oh, what's the point of holding on to hope whenever they keep doing this to you? Why do we have to pay somebody extra for them to do their job, for TDC to do their job? I messaged the guy that, the head guy, and he's like, oh, well, yeah, they probably just didn't, why not? Why didn't they?
Unfortunately, that's one of the lessons that the penitentiary teaches us. After you've been in a little bit of time, it teaches everybody to expect the worst, but hope for the best. And the reason for that is you have to expect the worst, not because you're cynical or jaded or anything like that, but you have to be prepared in case the worst happens. And if the worst does happen, you can't allow it to break you, not completely. You can't never allow yourself to be completely broken. That's why you have to consider all these possibilities, and especially the worst ones, the ones you fear the most, the ones that have the potential to hurt you the most. You have to consider it. And even though you don't want that to happen, if it does, it doesn't catch you totally unaware. So therefore, if that makes any sense, in a way, you kind of prepare yourself for it. But it's also every bit just as important to maintain that little bit of hope. Expect the worst, but hope for the best, because hope is what keeps us putting one foot in front of the other. Hope is what gets us up out of that bunk day after day after day, and makes us keep going, keep on pushing. That one of these days there's going to be a better tomorrow. Yep. So, you need both sides of that coin.
Christina, do you guys have, like when it comes to mental health treatment in Florida, is it used? Is it, is there plenty of treatment out there, or is it like fighting tooth and nail still?
It's fighting tooth and nail. And so the way they have it set up right now is, and I know this because I was on mental health medication. So they do like their checkoffs basically. So inside, they'll come and talk to you. Just say, "Are you okay? Do you feel like you're going to hurt somebody? Okay, cool." But there's no like therapy. There's no like let's talk.
Counseling.
There's none of that. It's just making sure they refill your medication and just making sure you're not a threat to anyone. But that doesn't do anything.
I was asking because like him and Tabitha were saying, being vulnerable in prison is probably the absolute worst thing they can do. And that's Tabitha's husband, I'm sure, as soon as he got told, okay, you're being denied parole again, now you're automatically, he was opened up back to that vulnerability, like, hey, I just did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're still telling me I can't go home.
What else do you want from me, man? I've done everything you want.
It becomes it does. It becomes hopeless where you're like, well, what's the point? Why am I even having good behavior? Why am I doing any of that? And I know I got to a point where I was like, I have a criminal record now. I can't, I had trouble getting a job, apartments. They were doing background checks and stuff. And there's this thing that stays with you. It's like a shadow and it follows you. And the thing is, like, everyone has made mistakes. Like, could you imagine if we had, like, everyone knows about our mistakes because of the criminal system. But what if everyone else had to wear a sign with their worst mistake? I guarantee they probably wouldn't do it. But I will say the one thing that helped me move forward was that I actually had a mentor. And that's because I was hopeless. I was like, I just felt like my life was over. There's no way to recover from it. And it was actually my attorney that became my mentor. His name was Lee Perlman, and he's a criminal defense attorney, and this was not part of his job, but for some reason he did. He took me under his wing, and now I'm in school for law, and one of the things I plan to do is help others that are currently incarcerated to try and get them a second chance out. And our system isn't great for that, but you know, I was hopeless, and I'm really grateful for him because he's the one that gave me hope and the kind of the fire to start working like with profits, you know, and
that inspiration.
Not a handout, but a hand up.
Yeah, exactly. He pushed me, and even when I was crying, he made me stop, and he was by my side every step of the way. And I think part of the reason I'm so big in this reform has a lot to do with him. So yeah.
So Tabitha, how's he doing now? I know it's only been a couple of days since, you know, we've gotten the news and tried working a remedy out. How is he doing?
Well, I mean, he's trying to hold on to that hope, you know. I've been trying to talk to him, and since we filed that paper, he sent it over to him. Sent it out in the mail today for a special appeal because, you know, his reason for being denied parole is gang affiliation whenever he's already, you know, graduated the program.
He's already been disassociated.
Right.
Yeah, and so he's just trying to hold on, man. And if for some reason, I would hate to, you know, I don't want to say, you know, but it's hard. But he's just, you know, at first he was just like, you know what, bring me back to SEG. What's the point in this? Yep. You know, like I don't even care anymore. You know, like he said, they could just change my classification back because, you know, I've done everything they told me to do, and everything.
Here I am. Yeah.
They make it so hard, man. But that's the danger zone right there. Whenever a person gets to the point where they decide that they're not going to care anymore, that's the danger zone. You know, and it's so hard to maintain it. But I used to tell so many of the guys that I mentored, man, it's easy to not give a hoot, right? And the problem is, like, some people have a lot of fun whenever they don't care about nothing, no consequences, come what may. I'm going to do whatever I want and just be defiant and rebellious. You know, it has its own appeal and allure, right? But at the same time, man, on the flip side, it's hard when you care. It's hard when you care because you got to consider other people in your life. You got to consider all of your actions. You got to be able to consider the likely outcomes of situations before you actually engage in whatever may cause them. Like, I know if I open my mouth and speak on this, odds are, man, it has the potential to go all the way sideways. So before I even open my mouth, do I really want to even chance that right now? Is it really worth it? Well, that's the type of thought, the beforehand thought that we need to have.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have this same experience, but I know, like, whenever I talk to new people, my first thought is, do they know that I was arrested? Did they look me up? Because I know, you know, people will have a certain, you know, some like, will my voice even matter when I'm trying to talk about, you know, all of these things?
Absolutely. Well, since we're having all these tech issues tonight, we're going to end this early tonight. But Christina, I want to continue this conversation with you.
I would love to.
Because I think we have a lot of stuff that we can ping off each other with states, you know, helping each other out because you guys do some great things that I would love to dig into deeper. That was you know, you and I are an ongoing conversation. I'm just a call and text away. Kafid, I'll see you Sunday. You're going to be here with the rest of our newly released people that can talk about the same subject.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, but thank y'all for being here. I'm sorry it's been a technological nightmare today. This is not normal at all for us.
It could have just been a coincidence.
Yeah. Hey, I got one question for y'all though.
Yeah.
For everyone that's been incarcerated, because I still kind of struggle with this, man, a little bit. And I know I only been out for like maybe a good almost a year, but like, do y'all still get the stares? Like, you know, when you just be
Brother,
out in public and you be
brother,
walking,
man,
yeah,
me, man.
I know,
Scared
cause like
all the time.
I got the same stuff too, man, and like I be feeling so bad, cause then I just be feeling like people just be staring me down. They be like,
Yes.
"Ugh,
Man, I'll tell you what,
convict."
to the Capitol building, going through security with an ankle monitor on and head to toe and tattoos.
It gives you a chance to share your testimony with them.
Yes. I'm like the only guy that looks like this in the entire state capitol, in the Capitol building.
He's a police officer because we're at the Renaissance Fair here in Fort Worth. We're walking out the gate, and all you get is a side eye, like, okay, yeah, like we're aware. We're very aware. So absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all
Well,
have a
I'm
good
glad
night.
to know I ain't the only
You
one.
too.
All right, y'all too.
Bye.
It was good.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of all y'all.